Hi everyone, this is Pastor Amy, and it's Wednesday, May 30th, and I'm happy to be with you to offer some thoughts for this upcoming Sunday sermon. Sunday, June 3rd, I'm beginning a preaching series, a 4-week series on our values at the Park Church Co-op. And I want to start this week with talking about a culture of radical openness and my reflections on the reading for Sunday, which is from Mark chapter 2 and 3. I wanted to share a story with you first from Saturday. We had a spring cleaning here at the church, and so we had members of the community came together to kind of sweep out the corners of the church and to clear out the clutter, and it was really amazing because, you know, it's just one of those ways in which our community comes together, even if it's just for working together, and we enjoy each other's company and have a great time. And so afterward, we hung around. We didn't want to just leave when the task was done, but we enjoyed kind of just talking together out on the steps, and it was such a beautiful day. But then as we were out there, a neighbor passed by, and she noticed the new flag that we have flying outside of the church. And she expressed her disappointment to us that it was not an American flag, but the rainbow flag, especially since it was Memorial Day, and she felt like we should be flying the American flag. And at first, I felt really angry or sad that this neighbor felt like she needed to express this to us in this way. But it actually gave me a chance this week to reflect on why I have a problem with flying the American flag outside of the church, but made the decision to fly the rainbow flag. And one of the things is that I think, I really believe strongly that a church should always seek to display symbols that only widen the welcome and the invitation of God, not symbols that could be seen as divisive between people or to define who's in and who's out. And I think in some ways that's what national flags do, right? It's an expression of who belongs to a particular country or a particular nationality. And so I think it's why churches shouldn't fly national flags of any kind, not just the United States flag, because as Christians we believe that we are citizens of a different reality, that it's a reality where belonging and value is defined by the God of radical grace, not by our nationality or any human distinctions that we might put on one another. And right now, in particular, the U.S. flag flies over a country where there was just a law instituted that allows for the separation of children from their families as they come to the United States border seeking refuge from violence and poverty in their home countries. Jesus crossed boundaries all the time. And when he didn't cross boundaries, he certainly challenged them. And that's what we hear in the reading for this week. That in the first part of the reading, Jesus is walking with his disciples through a grain field, and they're hungry, and so they eat. But because Jesus is confronting and challenging the boundaries and the rules that have been established by those in power, the authorities are sort of scrutinizing him and his followers a lot more, and so they point out this violation of Sabbath laws, that they are harvesting, doing work on the Sabbath, and eating the grain that they have harvested. And Jesus tells the authorities, that these rules for keeping Sabbath time are meant to be a source of nourishment and benefit to humankind, not the other way around, where people are supposed to obey without question all of the laws of the Sabbath, that the Sabbath was given to us as a gift. And so he challenges the authorities' take on this. And this theme continues as he then enters the synagogue, and a man with a deformed hand enters the synagogue. And Jesus is also being watched again by the authorities to see what he would do, because technically he wasn't supposed to do an act of healing on the Sabbath, and so they wondered whether or not he would continue to break the laws that they thought were important. Jesus tries to turn it back on them with a question about, whether it would be right for him to do harm or to heal on the Sabbath, but they refuse to answer. And so Jesus restores the man there in the synagogue, boldly sort of transgressing that boundary that had been set up. There's another way also in this story that Jesus challenges those distinctions that the authorities or the systems or the powers put up between people. 2,000 years ago, the man's deformity would have made him sort of unacceptable in God's sight, at least as certain people interpreted, that if you had some kind of deformity or blemish, you weren't fully acceptable to God. And Jesus directly confronts this notion by asking this man to actually reach his hand across the divide, across this invisible divide between them, that Jesus actually asks him to reach out and then touches his hand and heals him. I think, when we talk about a culture of radical openness, it doesn't mean that anything goes and that we aren't about keeping healthy boundaries that maintain community. But there are ways to keep those healthy boundaries in positive ways, while at the same time striving to understand that boundaries must expand to make sure that everyone feels invited and welcomed into a safe space. For too long, I think faith communities have set up boundaries that felt exclusive to people, that there was only one way and a certain way of thinking and believing in order for people to feel fully welcomed into a church or into a faith community. But here at the Park Church Co-op, we commit to that radical openness. It's something that we value, and that's why we put it first. And we commit to welcoming the interruption of anyone who enters our doors and inviting them in, the same as anyone else. We commit to paying attention to the needs of others in the world when we're on the streets of New York, just to be attentive to our neighbor. And to invite the curious and the skeptical to come and see without judgment or precondition. That's my invitation to all of you, to come and see, to cross over the boundary that I know sometimes exists, or it feels like it exists, between you and a church community. Because I think if you decide to join us on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m., you'll find that we really do practice that radical openness, and we are a loving community that seeks to support and encourage one another. So I invite you to join us, join our community, either for worship or for one of our other events, or to be part of the conversation online. I'd love to have dialogue with you through Facebook or Instagram, or by you leaving a comment below. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I look forward to talking with you again. God's peace be with you.